very fortunate to have Nanea here to talk to us a little bit about Machinima.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know Nanea for some time now. I think you were with EA.
I was.
When we first met. She works for the online division, and then she moved on to become the Chief Operating Officer of Gaikai, right?
Chief Strategy and then Chief Product and whatever.
Okay,
whatever they needed
Pretty
to
much
do.
everything.
Yeah.
And you were there for 2 years? Or
I was there for a little over 2 years.
Yeah?
Yep.
And that was before Sony
It was
purchased,
right before
yeah,
Sony purchased,
Yeah.
which was a good thing.
Yeah.
It was a great thing.
And now it's being integrated into the PlayStation, right? Or the next edition of PlayStation.
That's what they say.
That's
Yep.
what they say.
Yeah, so I ran into a few people and got the update, but it's pretty exciting because I think it's finally realizing the vision that Dave Perry and the tech team had originally, you know. And
Right.
So, yeah, it was the right move.
And now you moved on to Machinima.
I did.
And Machinima is a really interesting company, and I'm sure you're going to go over
Yeah, I can.
the details. So
I will
I'll just
PowerPoint to death and kind of talk to you about it because it's kind of an interesting ecosystem, which is what really, you know, attracted me to the opportunity. We were so deep into it at Gaikai when Alan first reached out to me that I said, "There's no way," but he kept staying in touch, and I'd really never heard about Machinima. Other than I thought it was this company that was taking our IP at EA and doing strange things to it. And then the more I looked into it, it just looked like this amazing ecosystem, and it had its own economy, and that was very fascinating to me to want to investigate more.
Right.
So eventually, after ongoing conversations, I made that move over, mostly just out of interest and curiosity.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're the Chief Operating Officer there,
I
right?
came in as Chief Operating Officer, but now we've restructured a little bit, so I'm going to focus on building completely the new business.
Okay.
Which is product, technology, building out the platform, scaling. We had some initial success on the Xbox
Right.
launch. That let us know that our brand really can stand alone outside of YouTube, so we're going to throw some wood at that, and I'm going to do it without any distraction.
Sounds like a pretty interesting role.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take a
it's very
seat, and
similar.
I'll let you
Okay,
take it
great.
away, and then we'll do some Q&A afterwards.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for coming. And I get asked a lot, what is Machinima? I think when I told my mom I was going there, she said, what's it called, Mashugana? So for those of you who know what that means, a member of the tribe. I'm a step member of the tribe. But Machinima at its origin is the name of a movement. It combines machines and cinema into an art form. And that's what our company was originally formed around 4 years ago. There was a founder before who had focused on that art form, around that movement. And since then, we've scaled the business to become one of the largest entertainment networks on YouTube. We've had 300% year-over-year growth during the past 3 years. And so I'll give you a little video view on what it looks like today.
Are you ready?
Hang on!
Machinima covers so much grounds in video games and entertainment, anything that's like online and digital, and that's why I love it so much.
It's a really weird conglomeration of media, gaming, and nerdism.
I wouldn't be anywhere without Machinima.
This here to me is like one big video game family.
Machinima is the future of entertainment.
It's the most free I've ever felt creatively in my life.
Machinima to me is support, how they get you to grow.
We're international, and I know that people from all over the world will literally be tuning in, and anywhere you could possibly imagine, and that's insane.
I really stay involved with my subscribers. They have a huge role in influencing what I make because if I ever try something new, I can go to them and say, hey, what do you think of this?
The best way that I engage with my fans is live streaming. 500 people asking me questions, and right there I can engage talking to all my fans.
Everybody is plugged in, everybody's tweeting, everybody's liking, and everybody's watching what everybody else is doing.
It's gone from being something that was very like a small little community to being this huge thing. this is really cool. These guys get to have so much fun. And I was like, I kind of want to do that myself and, you know, build an audience around enjoying content I create.
The more people collaborate with each other, the more successful YouTube is, the more successful Machinima is, the more successful your channel is.
It's absolutely the poster child of what the entertainment industry has to be going towards.
So as you can see, our demographic, it's very specific, and the Machinima brand, very aspirational to young boys, especially between the ages of 13 and 24. We do have some older guys on our network. They're very specific though. And our audience, they like to play games more than they go to movies. They watch YouTube more than they watch television. And Hollywood has often referenced them as the Lost Boys. They're definitely found on Machinima. And they're also, you know, interesting to advertisers because they're very influential on what technology their parents buy in the household. You know, they have high bandwidth connections, they have all the devices. So advertisers are starting to really show up at our door. When asked to describe Machinima, we like to say that we're the MTV of this generation's geek culture. At least that's our long-term vision. And if you think about all the content experiences right now that are driving mainstream culture, you've got Avengers and Dark Knight, Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, Big Bang Theory, emergence of EDM, electronic dance music, and gaming really as a passion point. That is what scaled our network. So Call of Duty, League of Legends, now you see a really big rise of PC gaming. Friday night, I have to say, I went to the League of Legends Season 3 finals at Staples Center. It sold out in 1 hour. People came from all over the world. Now, I've known the guys that built that game, you know, before they even built the game, and to sit there with them and see this stadium of tens of thousands of people watching kids play professionally for $1 million. I couldn't believe it. And people were watching the live streams all over the world. It was really an insane thing. That's Machinima's audience. So we are at the forefront of those experiences. We have become a major force in this revolution. We do have tremendous scale. Our audience is young and male, although recently we're starting to see about 25% of our audience is female. Our most recent engagement numbers show the power of the network with 203 million monthly uniques, over 2.4 billion monthly views. Our average engagement is about 115 minutes per viewer per month. And half of those views now we're seeing coming in on devices other than PC. The uniques are unique cookies, so ComScore has our total uniques at around 90 to 100 million on any given month. So that means that we're probably seeing about 2 devices per user showing up, and that'll scale more as these next-gen consoles roll out. So our engagement is higher on YouTube than any other network, and I think that that says a lot about the category. It says a lot about sort of targeting, you know, that we are a macro niche audience. They do consume content on multiple devices. Now we're able to see the data more granularly. There's 27% are on smartphones, so there are a lot of people watching long-form content, even like this. 15% are on tablets, and then the others are like smart TV, game consoles, Xbox, and we're starting to see longer viewing times show up on the larger screens. So this, you'll hear me talk about data a lot because part of like what I've done with my career is use data as a foundation for decision making. So I'm gonna show you some of the things that we've done with that. It was the first thing that I put in place when I joined Machinima, was a data warehouse. So we are global. And I don't think anybody could have predicted how effectively YouTube would create this world, this new world of global entertainment consumption. And there really isn't a TV network that is global, and YouTube has really created that ecosystem. And we have 1 billion monthly viewers available to us through YouTube that can monetize in any continent. So we've shown you a little bit about some of the obsessive qualities of our audience, but I want to talk about some of the content that they like. We program to the needs of our audience and Gaming and gamers are a big focus of our programming. So we have persistent content that we're getting out there. 1,500 videos are uploaded a day across our network. And we are also live streaming from all the events that they like. We distribute comedy, animation, sports. We have our partner network, which I'm going to talk about. And we're looking at all this data and starting to make decisions now on what content to focus and go long on. So one of the things, we had announced last year a relationship with Ultra Music, and a lot of that was just based on analytics. We saw after they were watching our videos, they'd go watch deadmau5 videos. And so that data helped us fuel some of the decision making of how we do even our deal flow. And we're looking at patterns of what's working, what's not. And here's an idea of how you can use the YouTube ecosystem to incubate content. So you take a short film, you can create a series from that and either shard off to a game feature film. We've seen this use case over and over the past few years. And in fact, with Mortal Kombat, Kevin Tancharoen was a director. He focused on, I think he did episodes of Glee, and he did a 3D dance movie, and wanted to show that he was capable of directing live action. So he did a short of Mortal Kombat, a game franchise he was really into, and put that up on YouTube, and it just took off. We distributed, worked with Warner Brothers on creating a web series that was distributed through Machinima, and it ended up doing 60 million views worldwide. All episodes. So then we worked, we just released, I think on the 26th of September, we released season 2, which, the views are phenomenal. So it was super exciting to us, and Kevin is now directing the feature. So that shows how you can incubate talent, incubate IP with this. If the short didn't attach with the audience, you could bail and you save yourself a lot of pain, a lot of money. And so the other thing that we do is we do incubate a lot of talent. We find these kids that seem to have an authentic voice, they do cool things, and it has been a lot of fun. We have 8,000 content creators. We work with them to grow their audience. We bring them branding and sponsorship opportunities, even after they leave our network, when they start getting too big. And we were talking about it earlier. It's, after a certain point, it's like having the 40-year-old son kind of still in the house. They have to go and spread their wings. So, but they stay close, and it's been great. They're critical to our recruitment and our promotion strategy. And some of these kids, and I will say, some of them will take home $100,000 a month. So that's the power of the economy that we're talking about on YouTube. That they create this content, they grow an audience, we monetize it, and that's net, they take home. So you can imagine. Now, not everybody on our network is making that kind of money, but there are many. Mitch Lasky, who is an investor in a company and was an old boss of mine, was telling me he got mad at his son for all the money he was spending in games, so he told his son to get a job and he signed up to be a Machinima partner. So that's exactly the use case that we want. So anyway, the kid in the middle, Syndicate, he just bought a house when he was 19, he's 20 now, so, and he lives in the UK. He used to work at McDonald's. So it's a great story to see these kids doing what they love to do. And so it makes our brand very aspirational, not only with the kids, but also with some of their parents. So what we're doing right now is it's a new opportunity for us to drive awareness for brands and activate our audience around those brands that they care about. And then we're also bringing our audience to the brands that want to reach our demographic. So we use our content and our influencers to integrate film, brands, and game content into videos across our network on YouTube. And then we have our influencers promote entertainment brands. They activate them on their social channels outside of YouTube, and then we bring them to our events where they create live streams to bring those brands and our audiences together in an authentic way. One cool thing, we did this thing with General Mills where they sponsored our E3 party with Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and we had cereal all around. Because they identified through their data that there was this segment of nighttime cereal eaters. They were on our audience. And so, yeah, there you go, all the gamers in the crowd. So it was cool, and then we had some of the ultra music artists there dropping some new music that hadn't been seen before, and we live streamed that on YouTube. So again, it's just such an interesting just ecosystem. There's not another word that's better for it to really investigate. One of the things that we've been doing is also looking at what makes someone influential. And first and foremost, we see authenticity is really the key to ensuring that any messaging really delivers. As soon as these kids feel that they're being pitched to by one of these content creators, it just falls flat. And because our audience is very vocal and they can be very hateful, it's the same audience who, you know, voted EA the worst company in the world, right, in America. Like, there are people destroying the environment, and EA is the worst company in the world. It's one of the best companies I've ever worked at, and but anyway, so I digress. Let's see, where was I? Identifying influence. So the thing for us is we need to understand what are those triggers that create influence and create an environment that allows us to detect who is going to be influential. So we've started to identify certain attributes now that we're getting data in almost real time through the YouTube API into our data warehouse. We can start to see who's spiking, and it might just be seasonal reasons why they're spiking, or they happen to be focusing on some topical moment. So it's not that they're always the top influencer. And this is where you can get a lot more out of your network if you are an MCN. So what we're starting to see though is when you narrow your content focus on YouTube, you start to get an authentic voice as the expert. That's when you really create affinity to your audience. So trying to be everything to everybody is not always the best content play, at least in that area. Maybe it's because it helps you in SEO if somebody's searching for something. There are a lot of reasons that could influence why you seem to be catching on. The other thing we've started to do is look at how do we expand beyond YouTube. We did this tune-in campaign with NBC Universal for a new pilot, and it was really cool. We had 8 of our influencers go and tweet, hey, I'm gonna watch this new show. Why don't we all watch it together and kind of talk about it? And it was hugely successful for us and for the TV show, and the audience loved it. You know, many of the tweets were like, hey, this is really cool. Let's do this again next week, which is exactly what you wanted to have happen. And then right now, you know, the new buzzword is native advertising. I think it was called branded integration before, and it's definitely what a lot of our content creators are doing. We do a lot of it at Machinima right now. And I want to show you a really cool video that we did with General Mills. It was the first one. They kind of identified this segment of people later in the day who are eating cereal, and they came to us to try to reach them. So I love this video.
Look, on the lily pad, a leprechaun. Catch him! Catch him! Catch him! Catch him!
They always catch me, 'cause I'm as green as me clover hat marshmallow.
Oh, lucky, we're getting closer.
They always catch me. What if I had a new great green clover? I'll blend right in, blend right in.
Oh, lucky, we're getting closer.
They always catch me, catch me.
We gotta find Lucky, gotta find Lucky.
They're always after me, Lucky Charms. The chase never stops.
Got that right, Lucky.
Marshmallow power, double me luck.
Whoa, 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 oh, oh, whoa.
They're always after me, Lucky Charms.
Whoa, whoa, oh, oh, whoa.
The chase never stops. You can double your luck with Lucky Charms. Part of a nutritious breakfast. They're magically delicious. Part of a nutritious breakfast.
Catch a pack of Lucky Charms, charming. Catch a pack of Lucky Charms, Lucky Charms. Catch a pack of Lucky Charms, charming. Catch a pack of Lucky Charms, Lucky Charms.
Save the rainbow. It's as colorful as marshmallows in me Lucky Charms. Keep rainbows from...
So you get the idea. But it's kind of cool that you can make content the ad as opposed to just running an ad that, and it also means that we have to get a little more creative because people can skip the ads now. And so it's having the advertisers have to work a little harder to connect with that audience. And you only have a few seconds to do it. So working with content creators who have a lot of influence are one way to get your message out to them. And you can see it's a really, I find myself going, save the rainbow. Anyway, so. One of the things too I want to talk about, because we get asked a lot, why can't I do this myself? And I do think that there is a network effect, and we know how to do YouTube probably better than most. I mean, there is a way that you tag your videos so they show up in search results. This is an example of a video that was for a game called Hawken, which I'm going to talk about how we drove registrations for this free-to-play game. They gave us their trailer, they put it up on their site, and you can see the difference in views. It's 36,000, I think it says, on their site, and we got close to 1 million within 3 days, you know, of an unknown game. So that is, I think, part of why you want to really think about what is, it's a whole, it's not just about the content. You have to think about the science of discovery, even in these arenas.
And there's a piece of direct marketing there too.
There is. Where's that? Oh, yep.
Be the first to
there
play.
You go, yes, and that's where we integrated the registration as an annotation. I'm going to show you how. Is there a way you can dim the lights right up here a little bit just so that you can read the PowerPoints better? Thanks. Well, now I can't see the audience. So it's all or nothing, right? What do you guys prefer, darkness or light? Dark, okay, there you go. You can see the slides. All right, so let's talk about this. So what we did with Hawken is we started to experiment. This was one of the first things I did when I got to Machinima. We started to experiment with customer acquisition. And you know, this company was paying us based on every registration that we brought in. So it was important that we convert and we be able to respond quickly, similar to, you know, how e-commerce companies have to think about it. And you know, you can start to look at how to do things, drive game registrations, pre-orders, all these call to actions. So registration conversion has really become a key area of experimentation for us. And Hawken was released in December. They came to help us drive registrations, brand new IP. And one of the biggest benefits of having a robust data environment was that we were able to do some multivariate testing, which I'm going to show you about. We took their registration form and we redesigned it. And we ran 4 versions against the control. So you can see the control here. Their original design just on our network had an organic conversion of 3.6%, but all of our designs converted, you know, some even 2x. So that means within a short amount of time we were able to identify a form that would make twice as much money for us and get them more registrants as well. So that's the power of data as opposed to kind of waiting for a month for it to roll in or deliver from them how many registrations you. So this is taking more traditional e-commerce practices that they've been doing for a while and kind of integrating it into this space. So that was pretty cool. And then we took all the elements of the form that had worked and we integrated it into a sweepstakes, and we saw that converted at 16%, so we doubled again there. But here's the thing that was the most interesting. Here shows the effect of just featuring on the annotations. And so you can see we had a lot of spikes, but it blended to about 8% with, you know, that lull over there. There's the sweepstakes, but then we had influencers tweet it. And there was one tweet that drove 50,000 registrations. And that's, you know, there's no overhead to that. And so that was very interesting too, at least to me. And so the other thing then, when we did launch, I joined the company to build out the content distribution platform. And as I mentioned, I'm going to focus 100% on driving and building that direct-to-consumer business now for EA. I did it for EA. I did it for Gaikai, now we're gonna do it for Machinima. But we got custom Xboxes out to our influencers, had them do unboxing videos to build awareness about the Xbox launch. It was the fastest downloaded application in the past 12 months on Xbox Live. So that was super exciting to us. But I think the most exciting thing for us at Machinima was that Microsoft just put our logo up on their home dash. And so that affinity among gamers, that meant a lot to us, that they knew us as a brand. And in the YouTube ecosystem, that's not always an easy thing to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about data, and then we'll open it up for questions. How many people, and I can see you, are more technical in this audience? Okay, then I'm not going to talk as much as I would normally do on this stuff, but you can see these are the data inputs that come into our data warehouse. We're looking at social feeds. We've got data being beaconed from our applications. We've got all the YouTube data coming in, our Salesforce data coming in, and we're starting to put other external data sets in there so we can start mapping to it. And then that allows us to really look at a world when we build out our own channel of targeted and dynamic cataloging. So, because the first-person shooter gamer is very different from the person who just wants to watch sketch comedy and look at our Miley Cyrus twerking video that we put together, or plays League of Legends or Minecraft. They're very different audiences. So it's important for us to get them what they need right away. And that's what we're using for our environment on direct-to-consumer. That's what we're using our data for. On YouTube, we're using it to get more yield out of our inventory across our network. So that's, you know, current business versus future business, all operating off the same data. It's, I think, going to be a cornerstone for our success. And so this is what I'm not going to talk about. And this is where we're starting to identify different demographics based on genre affinity on our network, as well as different ethnicity or age clustering. 13 to 17-year-olds are watching very differently. That's where we're seeing more of the girls show up, which is very interesting in that demo. So really looking at our network in slices as opposed to just sort of macro roll-ups is where we're at right now today, and it's been great for the company. And I think that, you know, just to summarize, we see ourselves in this position where you early on had 3 big players in broadcast television, and then the cable companies came in and kind of started doing affinity program, and suddenly there were hundreds of channels. And now with internet, it's really, you can consume on demand, you can buy, it's completely unbundled in the way that the music industry became unbundled as well. So it has not been defined yet, and I think, you know, we're here to talk about innovation. This is an opportunity, I think, for incubation and really focusing. Machinima was, I believe, one of the very first MCNs. They kind of created this whole new economy. Other people have been very successful with that same model. You know, we're having to constantly stay on our toes to innovate now. And so there's a lot of room for experimentation and exploration to anybody who's really interested in that intersection of content, community, and commerce, which is really, for me personally, what made it fascinating to me, because it is global and you have multiple devices. And we're in a world now that's moving from being less address-based to more content to multiple devices based on what screen Jay has in his hand. You know, at 3 o'clock might be very different from the one he's looking at 8. And I need to make sure that I understand all those behavioral movements and patterns. And you know, one of the nice things when, and you can turn the lights on, that I thought was fascinating about this past year at the Emmys, you know, you talk about Netflix and House of Cards. They looked at their analytics and saw people who were watching the BBC version of House of Cards also liked Kevin Spacey movies. And that's what influenced their casting decision to reach out to him and do that deal. So, you know, again, I think some people tend to think, well, I'm creative and data is something those guys in blue shirts and khakis focus on. Sorry. I'm going to tell you a funny story about blue shirts and khakis one day that when I was at e-companies. I like to think of it more as a communication with your audience, that you're able to have a conversation in near real time about what they like and what they're really sticking to, you know, what you're doing right. They're telling you what you're doing right. And you can respond to that or you can ignore it, you know, and that's your choice. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting, and I'd love to open it up for questions from you. And
do we have any immediate questions out in the audience? Over here?
What's the most counterintuitive thing that the data has suggested so far?
You mean what we didn't expect?
Right.
Well, I know historically in my career, and this is something we were talking about earlier, when I got to eToys and looked at the way they did data, you know, there is a science to testing elements, and you will think that a green button will convert more than an orange button, because green means go, green means money, green's fresh, it's new growth. And the orange button will kick its ass every time. And so I call them Bob's big orange buttons. And so I think that, you know, we were saying, there's a saying, this data guy I know says, in God we trust, but all others must bring the data. But there is a creative process to identifying what to test. And it's a great way to end arguments too. And then we do side bets and we kind of gamify that. And so I'm always surprised when I see things like that green and orange button. For Machinima, I think it was the understanding of suddenly we saw females showing up. And I had talked about this with PewDiePie's channel when he was on our network. He suddenly spiked.
Can you explain who he is?
Oh, he's this Swedish guy who, he's great. I was really sorry to see him leave our network because he just got so huge. But
he's got the most subscribers of any single YouTube.
He's number one. Yeah. And so we saw this spike, and we were looking for certain patterns of growth, and we saw him spike, and we went, "Wow, what's going on there? It must be fraudulent." And so we have things to look for if they're all coming in from China and Eastern Europe. You kind of look at where the view sources are, and we went, "Wow, that doesn't look." There's nothing fishy here. And we looked at his content, and he was focusing on horror content, but then we saw a significant amount of his traffic coming from Tumblr, and that he had almost 50% female audience. And I went, what the heck is going on here? Horror, 15, these young girls on, and so we looked and thought, wow, okay, he's Swedish, and he's funny, and he's very much a personality. So those attributes all together of how he used Tumblr, and his videos were being shared on Tumblr, and then once you get into that related video stream, that is really like how, and we've seen similar behavior with Ola Soy Herman, where his videos are getting shared by girls on Facebook, and they love him, and they click on it, and they continue to watch, through the related videos. So that behavior has been something that we didn't really understand until maybe about a year ago when Pewdie started to really spike.
Right. And that's actually a really good bridge to a question that I had, because it seems like these days people are saying that you shouldn't, hatch your wagon to just one platform, and that these are YouTube networks in a sense, or have been branded as such, and even Machinima. But now that these YouTube stars are monetizing their content through Tumblr, through all these other platforms, and they're trying to catch people, whether on Facebook, on Twitter, on Tumblr, and then drive it around, so you basically have to get 5 views or 5 impressions for every single one who comes in at any of these platforms.
Right.
how are you guys working to make sure that you're not just,
Too
tied to
concentrated?
YouTube?
Well, we love YouTube, and the way that I like to think about it is a wonderful place to discover audience. And so if we can attach, get some affinity from a viewer, and they love us enough to want to go to our Xbox app or click through to our website, which eventually will become more and more customer focused, we'll start experimenting with that. But we're definitely rolling out new mobile apps and other applications. That is, if we were just to launch a website on our own, we would have to figure out how do we acquire customers. So in many ways, we already have that top of the funnel available to us. What do we do with that? It's kind of the other way around.
Right.
So I don't think of it as, if we weren't doing the other things, it would be a vulnerability, I think, definitely. But, that being said, the Machinima owned and operated channels are, in the top 100, if not, some of the most subscribed channels across YouTube of all time.
Right, they are.
Yeah.
And I mean, YouTube is a really incredibly powerful platform, and it's also a social network, right? Because a lot of people...
It's the biggest social network for gamers right now. There really isn't another one where gamers are concentrated on at the level that they are on Machinima, on
and even
YouTube, and on some of the other networks as well, but really most of them are on our network.
Right, and you see that in other mediums as well. For music, it's the same thing. Like
Right.
most people are actually getting their music for YouTube these
They're
days.
even listening to music or discovering music. So it's the same thing. You discover the music there, and then if you feel strongly enough to go and buy it, that's your next step. So that's the way I like to think about YouTube, not as an either or.
Right.
I think, Starsky, you had a question.
So you're talking about big data. Big data is, big data actually gives you a wealth of information as well as microdata.
It does.
Does Machinima, based on the information you're gaining, see the type of premium network content, such as Orange is the New Black?
Most definitely.
Are you guys looking at going that direction?
We just launched Mortal Kombat. You can binge watch all episodes of Legacy 2, Season 2 on the Machinima channel on YouTube, and then you'll see more of that come from us. I can't say anything just yet, but you definitely will see more premium content come from us. And big data, is a buzzword, and it means a lot of different things. I tend to think of it on the edge as kind of raw and unstructured, and you just dump your data on there. But data is only good as it is of the questions you ask from it, right? The other one.
Hi. Well, first, thanks for being here, and thanks
You're
for
welcome.
playing the Lucky Charms
video.
There was a part there that was repetitive enough that I think it would be a good cell phone ringer.
Yeah.
So my first question, if I get time to ask more, I'll do that. But the first question is, has there been a backlash from the Machinima movement community about the use of the word Machinima?
It's always a hot topic on Reddit. Less so now. I think most people, maybe early on there was more of that, but
do you guys know what Machinima is as an art form?
I think the best example, what would you say is the best example of Machinima? I think Red versus Blue was really, but they were on the Machinima network for a long time. The Rooster Teeth guys, yeah, they're great. So
but
Red
basically,
versus Blue,
it's making film using video game mechanics, right? Instead of actors or.
Yeah, and when I was at EA, we would see a lot of Machinima being made from using the Sims. People do horrible things to Sims and then put them up on YouTube, and they became very popular. And we'd go, "What the heck are these people doing with our IP?" And that's an interesting thing in and of itself. Is sort of just IP manipulation, and the video game industry has kind of been a little more loose about it than I think other sectors. But if you think about it, if a kid's going to spend all weekend, dedicate his weekend to taking your IP and doing something creative with it, why would you send a bunch of lawyers to his house, you know, that he's saying something that he's a super fan? So how do you get him to grow an audience and kind of amplify that for you? It's almost marketing you're not paying for, do you know? And it creates a community, and that's really what our network evolved from. So it started from the Machinima. It wasn't that we just hijacked that. That's what the focus of it was, with the Rooster Teeth guys on it, but then it turned into something else.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you go to the subreddit Machinima and you'll hear the conversation. Yeah.
In terms of the influence graph, you mentioned
Right.
PewDiePie and other two celebrities. Are there any sort of key quintessential traits about these celebrities that you've been able to render down?
Yeah. I think the most is just very targeted content focus, so that they become sort of the subject matter expert on that. You see it more in like our Minecraft community, or you can see it in Style Hall or Tastemade or some of these other networks, you know, that are doing that. And it's really that they, that's first and foremost. They don't have to be the best gamer, as it were, or the best at what they're doing. Then we'll see personality adds another layer onto it. Geographic, we're seeing certain people really attach in some areas than others. And a lot of it is what's popular in that area. So when we launched our LATAM channel in Brazil, we were surprised to see they were interested in live gaming. But they used it as an arena to talk trash about each other. It was, we go, why are the live streams so up? And we saw that it was kind of like this Tupac Biggie kind of thing happening in South America with each other, and it really, like, it was flaming, you know, at its highest level. But that's a conversation happening online. It was very social and active and passionate and unique to South America. We didn't see that behavior anywhere else. So it's making sure they get equipment, and we created a live streaming hub, and a lot of the Brazilians are on it, you know, at different times of the day. So, you know, that's a influence, I think, subject matter, authenticity of voice, you know, that's been the most influential. Mm-hmm.
So with YouTube, there's not a lot of ways to monetize,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to drive more traffic, it seems, to your website, which I think is
Not yet. Our website's still very B2B focused. So our first real off YouTube deployment has been the Xbox. We kind of knew our guys were there.
Halo guys.
Yeah, exactly. And Call of Duty and Minecraft.
Because it seems like you can control a lot more monetization and on your own website.
Absolutely.
YouTube. So is there any estimate of what percentage of your user base or your subscribers you will be able to move?
We have a
to your
goal.
website?
We have a goal.
Right.
I'm not going to share it just yet, but if we do that, it'll be an amazing ride, for sure. I mean, you think we have so much scale now, so it really, you can run the models and go, whoa, but we want to be conservative. And you know, the thing is, people are on YouTube to watch videos, right. So there has to be a real, you have to think about how do you differentiate. It can't just be a curated experience. It's not enough. We've done that version before, and it's like having a really cool phone that's not an iPhone. It has to be a significant difference. I mean, it has to do something phenomenal to get me to not use my iPhone or my Android, whatever my affinity is of the moment. So that's kind of the challenge that we face as product people right now, is trying to figure out what is that experience that will move them from that to engage more deeply with us. So we know our audience likes gamification. but it can't be lamification. Do you know what I mean? The trivia game about our company, not so fun, right? So it has to be something that they'll really get excited about, and that takes a little bit of thinking on our part.
My 7-year-old loves Minecraft. I can't get him off.
Do you play it with
Minecraft.
him?
I do sometimes.
I
I
think
install
it's-
the mods and then it crashes my computer.
I think
and
it's
all
the
that,
gateway to coding.
Yeah.
So I think
no,
it's awesome.
It's great, but he wants to buy like the pickaxe and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
if he could go to Machinima and buy that stuff and still watch the video, it'd be great.
Yeah, or we can at least help him with the video on what stuff to buy. You know, how to get the right loadout, and yeah, that, yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about how the YouTube economics work? I mean, I think YouTube takes 45% of the cut on the
They
ad
do?
spend, right? And then the networks take a little bit too, like 30% or something. If you're on a network or you have a deal with Machinima or Maker or Fullscreen or any of the other ones.
Right.
And then the rest is passed on through you guys. Are you taking over their, monetizing their whole channel? How does it work?
Everybody does it a little differently. We monetize the their channel. So yes, we do. It gets brought into our network. YouTube has created that provisioning technology. There's lots of information. You know, I recommend if you want to look at the controversial side of it, go to Jason Calacanis's.
Yeah.
You know, he says a lot of valid things. We don't agree with everything that he says on there. Obviously, I mean, we're very YouTube friendly and very YouTube centric, but there are some very valid points that he makes. I'm not going to talk specifically about the economics of how it's structured, but I will say we're not treated any differently than anybody else. And there are things that you can do to create more value. I think it keeps us on our toes to have to justify what kind of value we're bringing to the content creator. And when I was working on changing some of the dynamics of our partner network, you know, is really asking that question, you know, how do we get them better deals? How do we bring them more sponsorship opportunities like that Lucky Charms video? And we sent out, with EA, we sent out 2,000 versions of Need for Speed, you know, 3 weeks before the game launched to our partner network to, you know, create content and they could make more money. And that's a pretty cool thing.
Right,
You know,
because
so
that's part of that value that you add.
We
that
have
it's
to.
more than
Otherwise
just the
they
YouTube
can-
revenue,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And optimizing that and building
Yeah.
their audience. You're also bringing in other sponsorship opportunities.
That's today.
Right.
And then tomorrow we hope to give them more distribution touch points beyond YouTube as well, because as you said, they can get very popular, but it's still a lot of overhead to go and build an Xbox app and work with Microsoft and get out an Apple and maintain all those updates. And so that's something that we can also provide as distribution.
I have a question down here.
Hey, so one of the things that Machinima has done really well is audience acquisition. And I don't think it's entirely due to YouTube. I think Machinima obviously speaks the language of that culture, or else it wouldn't exist. What lessons have you learned from that you think other startups or even social platforms who are trying to build more monthly actives could benefit from the strategy you guys have used?
Well, I think it goes back to the question that this young man was asking about what makes someone influential. It's really staying true to not trying to be everything to everyone. You know, that 13-year-old boys know who we are, you know, because they know who we are because the 17-year-old boys they look up to are wearing Machinima t-shirts. And that is what it is. It's just staying focused, not trying to get too diffused and be everything to everyone, and staying authentic. And it means sometimes we say stuff that even our advertisers might not like. And when we start filtering that, we start to lose who we are as a brand. And so it's a healthy tension, and I think you see it in our company between sales and programming, and it's the right sort of tension that needs to happen. So I would say really find what's your voice and stay true to it. That's what I learned at Machinima more than anything. Because I'm kind of by nature just a facilitator and an enabler, you know? and get the product out there and create those distribution touch points and see what's working and what's not. But what I learned at Machinima is the power of really knowing who you are as a brand and staying true to that.
Just based on the last two questions, thank you. Based on the last two questions, I'm just kind of wondering, looking at your brand value, looking at your content value and the growth the company's been experiencing and all that, is there perhaps a point that you guys could see, this may sound kind of radical, but spinning off from YouTube and having your own video network so you don't have to share as much of the revenue with them,
Yep, that's our goal.
knowing that you have that going there?
We would never leave YouTube for that reason that I told you, that it's a great audience development arena for us. But yeah, that's the goal, and that's what I'm focusing on now. Yeah, by building what we're calling our direct initiative. Yep.
Yeah, hi. So you mentioned that you don't get any special treatment from YouTube, and I was wondering if you could speak about the investment from Google and what that was about and how that plays into it.
They're very separate entities. Anybody who's worked with both knows they're very separate.
What was the investment for?
The investment was, you know, they were interested in investing in companies. They invest in a lot of companies. So it was to help us scale. And they knew that part of our strategy was to build out the platform. They invested after I joined the company, so they knew that we, and I'm not saying they invested because I joined the company, but they, you know, the timing, they were aware that we were going to start building out a platform. So I think they were interested in helping us, a company built on YouTube, to just scale and grow, you know, this amazing thing that had been created on one of their companies. So I think it's just, they have an investment focus and it's a good business to invest in.
Was it from Google Ventures? Or?
No, it was from Google Corporate. Okay. Deep relationships all throughout.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just curious, do you have any female influencers?
Oh yeah, we have a lot. And when I was so happy, one of my favorite is Cupquake. I has Cupquake. And she's great, and she plays shooters. She's really playing a lot of Minecraft right now. She's playing a lot of Disney and Infinity, which is great. And when we were at Comic-Con, we took over this nightclub, which is, it's always strange to be in a nightclub during the day, but there you were. We had you could come and get zombie makeup and play some Ubisoft games. And we had our influencers there to have the fans come and meet them. And she had a line of little girls who showed up dressed like her. And it really, it just, you know, it made me so happy to see that, because I mean, really for me, I learned technology playing video games. That's how I got interested in technology, with PC games, and you know, I was building my own rigs, and the first one I built, I didn't ground the screws, and I blew the motherboard, and do you know, like those kind of things, you just, I love seeing girls, you know, orientate themselves toward gaming, because it is, I think, the gateway to technology. So.
Where do you see the evolution of content? I know beyond just traditional gaming content, like Zoochosis and other formats. Where do you see things going on the horizon?
Well, I think eventually you'll see a convergence of entertainment, and I think games eventually will become more about toolkits, and you see kind of Minecraft and Disney Infinity looking at this. Second Life was very much like that. The environment actually was created by the people, the audience, the users. And, you know, I was a drug dealer in Second Life, you know, and so it was great. I actually made some real money in there. And, but it's, yeah, so I think that's what, when you think about entertainment in this area, releasing toolkits, and I'm fascinated by co-op mode, where, and I think EVE Online really nailed that in a way that others haven't, where in order to advance, you have to influence people to come and help you and build together as a team. I love the idea of what that could potentially look like in the future, where you create sort of these playing fields, give the tools to the community, and then see what emerges. That, to me, is going to be an exciting arena. And look at Minecraft. It's amazing. And you talk about Machinima being created from it. I saw 50 Shades of Minecraft. You know, people are getting very expressive in it, and it's funny to see. You know, there's lots of great shooter mods for it, and and I've seen families play together online. I think Minecraft Dad is a really great Minecraft channel. So, and it's a community. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking this would be a phenomenal workshop that we could provide to them.
To create Machinima, that's a really great idea. It's not a focus for, I mean, kind of our whole work environment is like that. I mean, we pay people to come to work to watch YouTube. You know, we have many people that come and just find what's cool, and that's been the one benefit of being an old person working at Machinima is I know all the cool videos and posting them on Facebook before anybody else because they go flying around our audience, and it gives me major street cred with all the kids in our family. So it's funny. So, but it's that's been, I think, the fun, the energy of our company culturally is to see people really passionate about content creation. But yeah, that's a great idea to kind of create more of an open sort of, what was that place, the Color Me Mine, kind of, where you could go and create Machinima. That would be a neat thing to do, sort of like internet gaming rooms in Asia. Yeah, it's a good idea.
To wrap things up here, we're going to get to one or two more questions perhaps, but I also wanted to ask you, since this speaker series is called Big Ideas.
Right.
What was the big idea that attracted you to Machinima? Because you've been in video games, and this is a video play, and it's kind of a transmedia play too, to use a buzzword.
Right.
And how do you see video content, film content, and social media and gaming merging from kind of sitting in the epicenter of it right now?
Well, you and I were talking earlier about just how do I choose places to go work at too. And I actually started my career in motion picture advertising and then got involved in making websites mostly for fun. And because I was just fascinated by it. And when I went to go work at an e-commerce company in the 90s, people said, who would ever buy anything you can't try on? And, you know, and then when we started Jamdat, one of the first mobile games companies that soon became #1 worldwide, when we started that company, people said all day long, who would ever play a game on their cell phone? You know, now my mom, I go, Mom, what are you doing? I'm playing poker. Shut up, you know? And so that's, even when at Gaikai, you know, or microtransactions at EA, people thought, who would ever pay for something like a gun, virtual good that they can only use for 5 seconds and kill everything in sight? Well, here's an interesting thing. They will tell you in focus groups they would never do that. But if you give them the opportunity and they can in stealth, like buy some gun and obliterate everything around them, they will buy it. They won't post it that they bought it and used it. And so that's an interesting thing where you always believe your qualitative data.
Right. Because you're talking about data here too, and it's kind of interesting. I'm reading the Steve Jobs books, and he's kind of going against that. And he's saying, what do you think about, you know, gathering data and market research? And he's saying, I don't believe in that because the audience don't know what they want until we show them.
If I was Steve Jobs, I wouldn't need data.
Right.
For sure, right? But
so how do you know these things when?
Well, for me, I have just kind of followed that path. Like with Gaikai, I was told cloud gaming way too early, do you know? And Machinima, like nobody knew what the heck was going on, even only until recently there. So for me, it's always been, I followed what always ends up, it seems to be a good place to land by what I'm interested in learning about. Do you know, so they reach out to me because of what I already know, but I'll look at the opportunity being presented as, wow, is that something fascinating? So it's not even with any kind of arrogance, or somebody told me they thought I was psychic that way when but it's really more like, wow, that's just something I want to know about, do you know, and investigate and see what it looks like. So usually the first thing I'll do when I get somewhere is build out a data environment just so that I can find out what's going on in that arena. So I think the big ideas, though, if you're trying to come up with a big idea, it seems like it's a little more organic.
Right.
Do you know? Because I don't think playing games on a cell phone was a big idea at the time that we started Jammed at. Snake was it, right on the Nokia phone. That was it, you know? So it's kind of interesting, that whole pressure to be innovative.
Right.
Yeah, I have found that curiosity is the path to innovation. That's the best way. And do you have an affinity? Because you're going to have to, I still sleep under my desk at times, do you know? And so it's got to be something that I'm really super fascinated with.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's consumer driven then, perhaps you can say too. With a
I
lot
like
of these
platform too.
Right.
There's a company that I've been kind of advising, a really small startup, but they're doing something really interesting with data science and how to make that more accessible to people. And so those kind of things, I think the platform, you look at what we did at EA out of my group is build that global identity. That became the foundation for building out a digital business that is, I think, 20 to 35% of their revenue now, and they predict it will be most of their revenue in the future. That you have to know who the person is and where they're going and start to build that profile, you know, that cross-platform, cross-game profile, and understand who that user is, and that data has to become portable. And so I think there's a big idea around that.
Okay,
yep.
interesting.
Yeah.
We have the question over here.
Yeah, in the context of audience development and diversification, what's your take on short video platforms like Vine and Instagram?
Oh, I've seen some very creative, and you pass the microphone back to the young lady in the back, Tatiana. She worked at Twitter up until recently. She's at Nielsen now. So she can talk to you about what makes a good Vine.
Yeah, I'm Tatiana, and I love Nanea Reeves. So yeah, I was head of music at Twitter until 2 months ago, and part of our big focus when Vine was launching was obviously getting influencers to use it. But one of the things that I discovered through using Vine a lot is that Vine has created its own celebrities. And Vine became very fun for me when I started following people like Daystorm and Marcus Johns and these own like Vine geeks. And then there's the stop motion artists, in fact, there were 2 Twitter employees, Charlie Love and Ian Padgham. Ian actually left the company to start a Vine making company because he was coming into
and we started a weekly show that does the best Vines of the week, you know, which is very popular.
But kind of tying into my earlier question, because when I was asking Nanea that, I was thinking about Twitter building more monthly actives and how I was trying to do that in music. You know, every platform has its own niche audience, and the one that Vine created was not something that we could have planned. I think Dom Hoffman from the Vine team knew that. And so highlighting that niche audience, like Megan Sinoli, who's one of the stop motion artists on there, is now getting hired by New York Fashion Week labels and other brands to make beautiful stop motion Vines.
Well, and it's very difficult to make a good Vine.
It takes
I'm
an
not
hour and
that
a half
good at
for
it.
some people to make a Vine. When my coworker Charlie Love made one with me, he's like, I spent all last night slowing down this song so that I could speed it up while we make the Vine, and it's gonna take an hour and a half to make this Vine of you. And that's what they will do like every single day for the stop motion ones.
Well, Tatiana, what do you think about Snapchat and, you know, these ephemeral video short form? I mean, I know kids now are using it as a way to communicate too.
So I
It's
signed
the
up
new
for
messaging
Snapchat
app.
just because I was curious about it and it was local. from the music side, I've heard that they're starting to get in the music space. The problem is it's like destructive, you know, like you have it and then it goes away. But I've heard that they're starting to curate like stories and
right.
different
They're starting to
sort of
innovate.
influencers, and they're going to have to do that because, you know, from an advertising perspective, I'm not sure how much destructible video can be, you know, something you can advertise on. But it's fascinating, and if it's the primary way that millennial generation is communicating, then you definitely want to look at that.
Well, but I think a lot of this stuff can be very faddish, though, too. And so it makes it, we have to, audience retention can be a lot more of a need than audience development, do you know, especially with an ADD generation, right?
All right, last question. Pressure is on. All right, in the back.
So when you see an opportunity like Vine, for example, to create a Vine channel of the top 100,
right?
Is that a business strategy or is that a content play because your users are going to be
It's
totally
a programming
into that?
strategy first. Yeah, first and foremost.
But Vine doesn't pay you for that channel to
No.
reach your audience? Or,
No.
Okay.
Yeah, now, if they did approach us with that financially, that's where that healthy tension comes in. You know, the sales team will bring the opportunity, but the programming team at Machinima will reject many of them and it turn away revenue. And that you want to have happen because we can't just put anything out there, you know? So it's, there are just some things that are not right for our channel, and that becomes, that's where data does help, because sometimes what you think is happening on your channel may not be. And I think for a long time people thought we were a Call of Duty shop only, and while it's one of our most important brands, there's a lot of Minecraft on our network as well, and that's a completely different audience. And then now you're seeing the rise of PC gaming, but very popular with live streaming. So again, it's just knowing how to communicate. So that's where we'll start to identify these segments and start narrowing our content programming strategy to that, right? Thank you. I really appreciate all of you coming. I was imagining a room of 5 people in Pasadena, and I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, so thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.